Negative exponents. I am going to try to make this one as easy as possible. I want them all to be easy for you, but sometimes they're just one way's better than another. So I'm going to show you what I think is the better thing to do when you're multiplying like bases and you have negative exponents. I am going to use my rule that says if you're multiplying, you add. And so I've got negative 2 times negative 4, which is positive 8. And 8 times negative 4 is going to give me a negative 32. And m to the negative 4, m to the negative 3, and m to the negative 4 gives me negative 7. And negative 7 plus 4 is still a negative 3. And that's when I'm going to apply that negative exponent property. If you have an exponent, if it's still negative when you get through simplifying, then you're just going to move it to the other side of, you're going to make a fraction if there's not one. If there is one, you're going to move it to the other side. If it's in the numerator, take it to the denominator. If it's in the denominator, bring it up to the numerator. So again, this is doing a couple of our properties together. So look at number 2. That's an understood negative 1. So negative 1 times 3 gives me negative 3. And then I have x squared and x to the negative 3. When you multiply like bases, you add. So that's x to the negative 1. And when you multiply like bases, you add. So y squared and y squared gives me y to the 4th. I only want to have positive exponents, so anywhere that there's a negative exponent, you're going to move it to the other side of the fraction. So if there's not a fraction, you make one. So that x to the negative 1 went to the denominator and became x to the positive 1. And the 1 exponent is not necessary. Okay, number 3. Negative 3 over 2 is already simplified. There's nothing that you can do with 3 halves. So now look at your variables. I have an a squared in the denominator, and I have b to the negative 3 over b to the negative 3. And we just talked about that a few minutes ago. You can do a couple of things with this. I can either bring this up here, and if I subtract a negative 3 minus a negative makes it plus, and that gives me b to the 0. Or I can look at it this way, b to the negative 3 over b to the negative 3. Anything divided by itself is just 1. Anything to the 0 power is 1. And so my answer is just negative 3 over 2a squared. Number 4. I have 4x to the 4th y to the negative 1. 3x squared y to the negative 2. I'm going to show you one more option for this, because if you do get confused and you're not sure about that whole subtracting a negative number and you don't know if negative 2 is bigger than negative 1 or if negative 1 is bigger than negative 2, you can do this. You have this option. I've got 4/3, which will not simplify. X to the 4th over x squared. I don't know why when my hand goes up there, everything goes away, but let's try. Maybe it's because I'm so close. I'm not sure. But if I have x to the 4th over x squared, when you divide, you subtract, so that gives me x squared in the numerator. You can do this. If it's negative, move it where it will be positive. And then that might make it easier for you to know what to do with that. So I've got y squared over y to the 1st. And so when you divide, you subtract. And you're going to always subtract from the bigger number. 2 minus 1 gives me y to the 1st. And I have 3 in my denominator. On number 5. 4m to the negative 4m cubed. 2m to the negative 1n to the 0. So 4 times 2 is 8. When you multiply, you add. So negative 4 and negative 1 gives me negative 5 on my exponent for m. And 3 plus 0 is 3, so that's n cubed. I have a negative exponent, and I want to make it positive. So that m to the 5th is going to drop down to my denominator, and it'll become positive exponent. Last one, 3x to the negative 1 over 2x times 3x to the negative 4. I'm going to start small. I'm going to keep that up top. 2 times 3 is 6. X to the first and x to the negative 4 is x to the negative 3. Now here's where you have to decide what you want to do. Do you want to do my division property and subtract the smaller from the larger, or do you want to use that negative exponent property and just flip them to make them positive so that it might be a little more obvious? So the 3 over 6 we can do. 3 over 6 is 1/2. I'm going to take that x to the negative 3 to my numerator so that it's a positive 3. And I'm going to take that x to the negative 1 to my denominator so that it's a positive 1. Now finish simplifying it. I've got x cubed over x. You always subtract when you divide like bases. Subtract those exponents, and so I have x to the 3 minus 1, which is x squared over 2.